Welcome to Tonetalks. Welcome to Tonetalks. Welcome to Tonetalks. What up, y'all? This Tonetalks in the building. We having this discussion today. We talking AmericanDOS. You know, we've been talking about it all week. We talking about we gonna get to it. So here we are. We gonna get to having a powerful discussion. Everybody gonna get a chance to call in. I'll give you that call in a second. We over here in Studio C-Radio-Talk. You know I got Yvette with me. Let's turn that backbeat up a little bit more. Yvette, Carnell, you there?
I'm here.
You ready to have this discussion? Everybody been talking all week. You know, Kanye kind of came in and blew it up. We gonna touch on him. We can't leave him out. He in the Oval Office acting a fool. We both did videos on that. But let's just lay it out. Hashtag AmericanDOS, explained by the creators of the term. You know, American descendants of slavery. I got Yvette Carnell from Breaking Brown on the show. We gonna have the discussion. We gonna go through these questions. Number one, why is AmericanDOS needed to move Black America forward? We looking at the new immigrants. We looking at Kanye West and Black celebrity. We looking at Jesse Jackson. Come on. We looking at articles. We saw that New Yorker article. You remember that, Yvette? My great-grandfather, the Nigerian slave trader. We got to talk about it today. Then we got, can you have reparations? This is question number 2. Can you have reparations without the classification hashtag AmericanDOS? What is the Angela Project? You know, we part of the Angela Project. We was out there with Jesse Jackson, the man who brought us African American. We gonna talk about it. Just got back from with the Progressive Baptists, you know, the Baptists that brought you Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We was in Philly with them, presenting that data. Number 3, recent issues with casting of non-DOS, you know, West Africans, to tell AmericanDOS stories. What does it mean and why does it matter? You know, you have Cynthia Eviro, you have Issa Rae, who's a African. You have The Rock, who's some kind of mixture. You have David Owalu, excuse me if I got his name wrong, from Selma, along with the lady that played Coretta Scott King. Are they gonna give us a chance to be something in this world, or we just gotta be the undergird? We gotta be the bottom. We cast it to the bottom, the Yvette. Number 4.
Yeah, looks that way.
I agree. Is Black America on the verge of economic collapse due to white American oppression and immigrant tribalism? Number 5. What will Black America look like in 20 years without hashtag AmericanDOS and transformative government? I'm gonna give Yvette a chance to speak on that, and I'm gonna speak on it. Hopefully we can get through all this. I definitely want to give y'all a chance to call in at some point. Let's set this show up. Let's get it going. Let's just start off with that first question, and I'm gonna give Yvette the first crack at it. Why is AmericanDOS needed to move Black America forward? Let's talk about it, Yvette. Where did the term come from, and why do we need to move this thing forward with this?
Well, the thing is, you know, I've said this, but I don't think, I don't know how you, like, if you didn't know, if you talked about moving yourself forward and you didn't know that you were Antonio Moore, like, who would you be talking about? Like, it doesn't have any meaning if you don't know who is. If you don't know when you say move ourselves forward, but you have no idea who that person is that you're talking about or who that group is, anybody can come in and say, well, I'm a part of that group too. Well, I'm a part of that group too. Well, you're not going to exclude me from your group, are you? So eventually you just have this hodgepodge and you just end up being scattered and you end up fighting a whole lot of fights that really aren't your fights because you never took the time to define yourself.
So when we was looking at reparations, you know, I've looked at it with economists like Sandy Darity. I've looked at it with mega millionaires like Byron Allen. I've looked at it with preachers like Pastor Kevin Cosby, also president of the HBCU. And what we come to is a problem. We can't get to reparations because we don't know who should get it. Well, we know it should be the descendants of American slavery, but the way that they've built this thing, it would go to minorities almost. I mean, pretty much that's what Black has become in America, minorities. Is there a difference really? So when I sat down and started really brainstorming on this with Yvette, we needed something that really set back the framework of what black people are supposed to be in this country, which is American, and also identifies black people with the struggle of being in America, which is slavery. The problem that we've had for about 20 years, if not 30, is that since the casting of African American by Jesse Jackson in '89, is that we've been perpetual outsiders. We've been outside our own country. Using the word African American, Africa isn't a place. It's 54 countries, thousands of tribes, I believe, very divided. No transfer of commerce. Like as far as dollars, you get new dollars every country. Hard to travel if you have passports in Zimbabwe to the next country over. I was in South Africa and they was fighting the border countries because they didn't want them there. So the idea of a solidarity or a oneness in Africa was always faux. But we created an identity around African American that made us American second while we live our whole lives in America. So we need to put that first if we're going to be here, because that's how you lay claim to here. What are you? So inside of AmericanDOS is a way to start moving the discussion forward for reparations, for government recognition of what slavery meant. At one point, if you look, a Yale historian said the slave bodies were worth more than all of the railroads, all of the land, all of the manufacturing tools combined. How are we here and living an underling life when our bodies built America? Because we allowed ourselves to be recreated as an outside group when we were in the middle of it all. What do you think, Yvette?
Well, here's another part of it too. I don't think we understand. Like, and I've talked about the limitations of viewing solidarity through melanin. You talked about, with the guts and bones of this country, right? You put yourself to the back of the line, though. If every time a new immigrant population comes into this country, you just jump with them because they're the ones who just got here. You've been here 400 years, but every time a new group comes in, regardless of their politics or ideology or whether that's in your interest, you just jump on board with them if they're brown people. And so you just jump on board with people who just got here, and you put yourself in alignment with people who just got here, politically and otherwise. So you're always hitting the reset button on your own politics. Because now you have to include all of their grievances, which are new immigrant grievances, which shouldn't be your grievances, because you should be focusing on what needs to be focused on giving our specific history in this country, not a bunch of new immigrant issues with the next flock of whoever comes over.
Let's bring this to data. I've pulled this chart up in a couple of the more recent videos. You look at a timeline of wealth in America. Wealth in America today ain't what it was in 1980. Basically, since the Depression, they created a bunch of middle class to upper middle class white families through the New Deal, through FHA loans. And so what happened was this period from about 1935 well into 1980 created the America that you know today. Then since 1980, it's decreased back. So the wealth level held by the bottom 90 and the top 0.1 is the same now. It's the same as it was during the Depression. They both have the same amount of wealth. That means that's not good times. So you're gonna let me be free during not good times. The key is where was your family at in 1935? Well, many of our families were under boot to neck. And the thing that we have to understand is that moment, these newer immigrants weren't here to have the boot to their neck. So the argument goes, well, there was oppression everywhere. Well, they need to take that up with the people that oppressed them at that moment there. Not here. That's not how claims work. They don't work generally against oppression. They work against specific actors. If you're in Haiti, take it up with the French. If you're in West African countries, take it up with the British. But if you here and you AmericanDOS, you take it up with Trump. And so I feel like what we're seeing is this new immigrant group trying to traffic in the reality of what is owed to descendants of American slavery, because without that, you don't have no reason or no right to be asking for stuff. And so now we move over to the other side, which is Kanye West and black celebrity. See, AmericanDOS makes us start looking at this thing communally. Black celebrity made us individuals. Black celebrity made us the kind of people who see some kind of sanity in the middle of the craze that was Kanye West in the Oval Office. In so many ways, what AmericanDOS does is it begins to make us a group again, a group that then can demand specific policy that makes right what was wrong. You want to say something on that, Yvette?
Yeah, I think we don't understand claims. So like you just said, so what happens is everybody if you let everybody, people will take a piece of what is your claim. So somebody will come over here and say, well, this thing is designed just for people of color, because what happened with our government? We never properly defined affirmative action. We said it was supposed to be affirmative action taken at first to undo what had been done specifically to African Americans. Then it was expanded, and nobody ever really defined what affirmative action was going to look like. Then we got into a phase where the Supreme Court started talking about, well, it's going to be diversity. Basically, we can't fix what happened. We're just going to try to make sure everybody's included in the future, which is an awful fix to what happened, to try to make everything okay instead of fixing what happened specifically to a group. We've gotten this whole thing all wrong. And because we never really defined specifically affirmative action and the specific task and the specific what role the government was going to play and specifically what they were going to do, it's allowed everybody to come and eat off of it, to eat off of this cake that was designed for us to like fill up on and grow big and be the kind of Americans that we need to be.
So let me say this. Dash Radio, Dash Talk X, call in is going to be 323-230-4610. This isn't me and Yvette show. This is our show. AmericanDOS, while we created it, it's our turn. And we got to take claim to it. I want to hear from y'all. I want to hear what you guys got to say. But before I get to any of the phone calls, I did an article called African Americans Are More Than Just Africans in America. And I want to share a little section with you because I think it starts to frame the issue with seeing oneness in an Africa that isn't a place. It's a set of places. Yet despite all of this, recent immigrants from the continent of Africa are striving to create what amounts to a solidarity of sameness with AmericanDOS, one built largely around a narrative which encourages all blacks to view the continent of Africa as a sort of unified country and the United States of America as merely a transient one. They envision a broad solidarity built on an identitarian oneness that by its very nature undermines the unique claim of reparations being owed to the AmericanDOS as a result of particular injustice that have been born since arriving in the country. Furthermore, this imagined coalition complicates the issue of who should even have a right to speak as a representative of AmericanDOS on repairing the damage wrought upon American families, Black American families. Essentially, the solidarity is the painting of a fantastical, unified Africa that fought to get AmericanDOS back since the days the first among them were stolen in 1619. It is truly a version of history in which Wakanda and Zamunda might as well exist. In effect, this truly is a version of history in which solidarity through African Americanness has become a doorway where we can both go through. But in actuality, what we see is it's a one-way doorway. It's a one-way doorway that admits everyone with melanin and African origins and allows them the ability to integrate, at least superficially, into the culturally embedded position that AmericanDOS have traditionally exclusively occupied in the U.S., while giving no specialized access to African Americans to AmericanDOS to African countries. As a result, African immigrants, just like AmericanDOS, are also provided with access to affirmative action policies, which were conceived as a manner of recourse for the AmericanDOS community following centuries of discrimination. President Lyndon Johnson, in his 1965 commencement address at Howard University, emphasized how understanding the particular historical situation of AmericanDOS and its consequences prompted such legislative action. Let's speak to Lyndon Johnson, Yvette. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I was talking about when he was talking about the affirmative action at Howard University, and he about what we've been robbed of. But I also want to take a moment to address something that somebody said in the chat just now and said, like, how do we react to people who have a problem with us defining ourselves by tragedy. And the only thing I really want to say to that is that we were born of injustice. Like a grave injustice gave birth to this community. And that's the only way you can define who we are. Like, that is the crux of our wealth position and the fact that we're not American. Anybody who doesn't want to see that really just wants to have some type of pep rally or some type of fake or false positivity in their life that's really just meaningless. Like, your politics is not your therapy. Politics is not therapy. If you need therapy to make you feel good about yourself and make you feel the king and queen stuff, then you need to go and get that. But that's not what this political realm is about.
Let me say this. 323-230-4610. We taking all calls. You got problems, call in. We give it to you. If you want to give support, call in. We'll support you. Don't say after the show why we didn't let you call in. We on. Let me say this. It's not just that we were born a tragedy. You got people who created the tragedy trying to tell us not to be tragic. Let me explain what I mean. Article comes out 3 months ago. Me and Yvette been known this. It comes out in the New Yorker. It says, my great-grandfather, the Nigerian slave trader. I want to read a small section of that article to frame this need for AmericanDOS. This is a Nigerian woman, educated. Might be one of your friends from UCLA. See, they not telling us that whole story. We go to Henry Louis Gates. He tells us 90% of the Africans that were sold into slavery were sold by Africans. This wasn't a distant relationship. It was a consistent one, lasting hundreds of years. They were trading locks of hair. I'll share that in a second. They were riding the ships to go to school in London. And it's not a plane ride like you know today. I'm talking about weeks on a boat that had slaves under their feet while they go to get educated. Come on. So the article says, my great-grandfather was given the nickname Nuabani, which means from the Bani Port region, because he had the bright skin and healthy appearance associated at the time with people who lived near the coast. In the late 19th century, he carried a slave trading license from the Royal Niger Company. Again, we talking about my great-grandfather, the Nigerian slave trader, written by a Nigerian woman here in America about her great-grandfather trading slaves. One of those slaves could be your family. Let's talk about it. And what he says is an English corporation that ruled southern Nigeria. His agents captured slaves across the region and passed them to middlemen. Captured is the word she uses. Who brought them to the ports of Bani and Calabar and sold them to white merchants. Slavery had already been abolished in the U.S. and the United Kingdom, but his slaves were legally shipped to Cuba and Brazil. Let's stop about it. Let's talk about it. What happens is that they don't stop slavery when say slavery is abolished. They just make the ships faster. So his influence, and so it continued in America past that point. So she don't know if it's your family. This is a way to hide away from the consequence of it possibly being your family. But she can get affirmative action at the same time because she looks black like you. His influence drew the attention of colonial officials who appointed him chief of Umajisi and several other towns. He presided over court cases and set up churches and schools. So she's just having this great life on the backs of slaves. He built a guest house on the land where my parents' home now stands. So they passing that slave money back and forth, and hosted British dignitaries to inform him of their impending arrival and verify their identities. Guests sent him envelopes containing locks of their Caucasian hair. Funeral rites for a distinguished Igbo man traditionally include the slaying of livestock, usually as many cows as his family can afford. Nuabani Ogo was so esteemed, this is her great-grandfather, that when he died, a leopard was killed and 6 slaves were buried alive with him. You think those slaves wanted to be buried alive? You don't think that those slaves could have been related to you? You don't think that those slaves had real lives? So continuing on, my family inherited his canvas shoes, which he wore at a time when few Nigerians owned footwear, and the chains of his slaves, which were so heavy that as a child, my father could hardly lift them. Throughout my upbringing, my relatives gleefully recounted my great-grandfather's exploits. When I was about 8, so they celebrated his slave trading. When I was about 8, my father took me to see the row of Ugba trees where Nuabani Ogo kept his slaves chained up. In the 1960s, a family friend who taught history at a university in the UK saw Nuabani Ogbo's name mentioned in the textbook about the slave trade. This is a problem. This doesn't just make American DOS necessary. It's just you can't move forward without it. Yvette, we got a caller, but I want to bring the caller in, but I want to get your opinion. Let's get this caller in. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Lynette, calling from Houston.
Okay, 1 second, Lynette. Let me get Yvette. What's your take on that? What I just read.
Well, I think my take is this: we have to get out of this binary. You know, we have this whole thing. When you read that and you understand what that means in terms of there wasn't just one group of perpetrators. There were brown perpetrators and there were white perpetrators. But we have gotten to this thing like black people with melanin are brothers and sisters, and white people are enemies. And I think what you have to get on board with is that not all the enemies had white skin. Like the people who, you know, when you talk about Nigerian slave traders, people who had skin like you, because race didn't exist we have to understand that race didn't exist like that there was no race. That was something that was invented. There was no race, so they weren't selling you like, this is my brother. They were like, no, this is the so-and-so tribe. I don't want them. Get them out of here. He did this or whatever. Get them out of here. And I want some of them trinkets that the white people bringing in here, them things. I want to buy some of them things, so I'm going to give you these people. I'm in the flesh trade. That's what I do. That's how I make my money. Wasn't no feeling.
Do you understand that right now, I don't even know if I would be buried with money. To be buried with slaves that are alive points to a kind of culture that we can't even relate to, a kind of difference that we can't even acknowledge. 6 people were buried with this slave trading grandfather. You don't think it's important to ask all these people, where do you come from? Did your family sell slaves? We're not asking any of these questions because everybody looks brown. None of that makes sense, and none of that will work for your family and for your children going forward. Caller, give me your opinion on everything, whatever you want to speak to.
I just really have a question. I work as a nurse, and every day I see that we, as descendants of slaves, we are being pushed out of American citizenship. So, you know, I was just wondering, with you and Yvette as our leaders of, you know, this DOS movement, Breaking Brown Family and everything, what should we be doing? Should we be moving towards one community?
Let me say this. I'm going to give Yvette her chance. First thing is we got to get informed. Let me tell you a little bit of a backstory on nurses. We did a show on that maybe about like 3 or 4 months ago. The first black nurse had to do 20 years of internship before she was able to become a nurse. White people's foot to her neck. Do you understand that they didn't let black DOS women, African American women, whatever you want to call them, black women that descended from slavery, become nurses? But what happened was there was a shortage in the 70s. So instead of training American DOS women and undergirding black families with that wealth, they imported nurses. And now we celebrating the children that come from that. We got it. So my thing is, where we at is we at the first step before action. People got to get informed on what's going on. I don't think we understand the way that we've been replaced so that our voices aren't heard. I just did the show last week using Professor Thornhill's work to show how they don't want to have black radical voices in the room. So they want to leave us with this slavery in our families. They want to leave us with the cost of not having enough. You got to make sure you understand and are equipped to have discussions when people tell you stuff that doesn't make sense to push back. Yvette, you want to give your opinion to her?
Well, yeah, I think we have to, like, when you talk about, well, should we be our own people? Like, first and primary, yes. Like, we should understand that our grouping is not people of color. Our grouping is not quote unquote minorities. We have a very specific group. We have a very specific group with a very specific lineage. And when you hear a politician talking, and when you look at a policy proposal, your mindset has to be, how does this policy, how does this agenda affect my specific group? Not how it affects America, not how it affects people of color.
We got to look at how it's affecting, not how it's affecting people of color, how it's affecting American DOS. because what's happening is that American DOS are being shut out and left with grandmothers that don't have enough, brothers that don't have enough, not enough wealth. And so what we essentially end up with is we end up outside looking in of a country that we built, of a country that we need to act better on our part. So, caller, is there any other thing that you wanted to speak to? Because I'm gonna keep moving on.
I really just wanted to know, what should we be doing as this DOS community? Should we be moving towards a solid community, like not just virtual community? We have these virtual communities, but an actual physical community, so that we can have politics for ourselves. Like, what should we be doing?
I just told you. So, see, like, this is the part of the issue, and I think we got Yvette back on the line. Yvette, you back?
Yeah.
So part of the issue is that we want a solution to race. Every time, like, when I say you got to become informed, that it's like I want a solution. I'm not saying that you mean to be saying that. I'm just saying race is about an otherness for black folk. That's what it's about. And we got to understand that just because they don't have lynchings anymore don't mean that your brother that's in jail ain't experiencing the result of that. We got to understand what the wealth gap is. You can't be a family if your middle family is worth $1,700 without depreciating assets. That's not liquid. That's not enough to be in America. So we have to, I think we're at such a stage. Let me say this. As long as you watching LeBron James, Beyonce concerts, Serena Williams tennis, as long as you watching Meghan Markle weddings, the Shade Room on your Instagram, as long as you doing all that, you can't really get with this American DOS. But it's okay if you don't want to. They got something for you. If we don't do this, I'm telling you right now, it's a problem. Because we already on the outs. We didn't pressure Obama. Bernie wasn't elected. Trump came in office, passed tax reform. They about to leave you. Look, Yvette had a caller where the son went to jail, and instead of leaving him in jail, they gonna do you a favor. They gonna let him out and then make you pay $400 a month for the anklet. Thank you so much. And he can't get no job no more because he got a felony. Thank you. We got to understand that this is what's going on. So I feel like information is the stage we're at. Because if we don't get informed, then it's going to be a problem. Thank you so much for calling in, caller.
Thank you.
Yvette, look, I'm coming to you with this number 2. Can you have reparations without the classification American DOS?
No. Because how in the world and why in the world would the United States government give money to people or wealth, or however you want to divvy up the wealth that we need to get for reparations, to people who didn't bear the cost? So you come over here, but you're people of color. I had that when I went to Chicago. I forget what African country the guy was from, saying that, why shouldn't we've all suffered. Why shouldn't we get reparations? Yes, but if you're Nigerian, you take that up with the British or whoever colonized you or whatever. And why in the world like, if I was white, I wouldn't want to do that. Like, if I was white and you told me, well, yes, all brown people going to get it. Wait a minute. So all brown people get an advantage over white people. So I'm putting myself at the bottom, as opposed to just like this specific group. You didn't bear a cost to slavery. You got here, and so because you have the same melanin as the people who suffer, you going to get money too? Oh, hell no. Like, I think part of the problem, we don't understand. Like, we don't know, but you have to make a good case for reparations. And just saying you're going to include brown or black people gonna get it. All black people. Like, that's an awful case for reparations. This is a very, very, very specific group of people.
Yvette, we got a bunch of callers on the line. Let me take one of them randomly. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from? You gotta turn your background down.
Okay, give me 1 second.
All right. So look, this is where we at. You got people in the Caribbean gonna say I came from slavery too. It's all one slavery. The craziness of that is to not understand that chattel slavery was not plantation slavery. This is not oppression Olympics. This is about acknowledging damage. They worked people to death in the Caribbean and then replaced them. In America, they created a system of recurring slavery. You lived right with the white man, and he made a new slave out of your baby. Now, I don't think we understand that you also were considered like a cow or like a pitchfork or whatever. And so, like, essentially, I think what we have to understand is, no, we're not talking about DOS. We're talking about American DOS. Because the last point is the most important. If they come and give you some reparations in Haiti from France, I'm not going to ask for none of that. We in America, this came from my family's bodies. My mama from Mississippi, my daddy from Alabama. Now, I don't know where you from, but I'm telling you that I'm coming. Caller, give me your take on this.
Yeah, and I was watching a couple of Sandy Darity videos this morning, and it's not that just we were in chattel slavery, but the repercussions of that lasted for over 400 years with Jim Crow, with segregation, with redlining, everything like that. I mean, for every dollar that a white household has, the black household has 5 cents.
Come on.
I mean, that can't be fixed with banking black or black businesses. So for us, we need to get that information, and I think that's where it starts, because that hearing you say it and then hearing Sandy Darity say it, it's just eye opening. It's shocking, but we need that shock in order to be able to then affect change and get policies made around addressing those specific issues.
Let me jump in here, caller. Let me jump in here.
Okay.
Me and Sandy Darity did a paper with Dark Hamilton, Ann Price, a couple of other people as well, and it's called "What We Get Wrong About Closing the Racial Wealth Gap." It's about the 10 myths. Yep. It's the 10 myths to close the racial wealth gap. Pick that up. I'll put the link in the description. We just talk about everything: banking black, entrepreneurship, homeownership, black celebrity, family disorganization. All of these things are myths. Your problem is your blackness. And your blackness is rooted in coming from slavery and Jim Crow. You got to understand that they put foot to neck where every time your family tried to make wealth, they took that wealth from them. That's not what happened to the girl in Nigeria whose family was trading slaves. That's not what happened to her. The game is to tell you that when they get here, they come as janitors or they come with nothing. Well, we didn't come with nothing. We were sent here. We were sold here as property. That's not even your family was the wealth that made America possible. It was not a Southern institution. All the clothes were made in the North. All the shipping ports were in the North. The banks that hold the notes were in the North. Think of the South as the place that maintained slavery, but the North as the place that distributed it. That's what was going on. This was an American institution. Right now, I think we have a severe lack of understanding of American DOS. And we're here to inform y'all. From wealth to slavery, we're here to let you guys know the reality and the consequence of how you can't get to reparations until you understand yourself. Yvette, you want to chime in?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of, this is not, we have allowed other groups, people of color, to come here and say, I suffer just like you because I can't catch a cab. And I suffer racial discrimination. That's not the same thing as the failure that has been baked into our lives for generations and has put us below the person who just got here. So the fact that, it should be offensive to us that somebody says, well, like a Barack Obama said, well, I can't catch a cab. So when the cab driver drives by, that's what he sees too. So because the cab driver can't tell us apart, that means who we are. So that's how we define ourselves, by a racist cop or by a racist cab driver. No, we have to define ourselves about lineage and the cost that is baked into that lineage.
This is Tonetalks, Dash Radio, Dash Talk X. Please use the super chat here on the YouTube. We're in the chat room on my YouTube. We got 700 people in the box. They chatting, talking. Join in. Be part of this community, because we having the discussion around American DOS and why it's needed and why African American is such a problem. Caller, thank you so much for calling in. I want to take another caller. The phone lines are lit. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Big O, Mr. Chef from New York.
Thank you, man. I love when you call in. Let me say this thing. Let me give a shout out to somebody. Dr. Kevin Cosby is one of the most profound men in America. He started back the last HBCU. That HBCU is Simmons College in Kentucky. Try to support that college. He gave Muhammad Ali's eulogy. He has the largest church in Kentucky. And he is a profound man because he brought together the Progressive Baptists, the Cooperative Baptists, and the National Baptists. When he brought these three groups together, he brought together a coalition we have not seen before. And he's lighting the nation on fire. Well, he brought me and Yvette into the Angela Project. The Angela Project is recognizing that next year, 2019, it's 400 years since Angela, the first slave, stepped out on the East Coast into America. This is not about a celebration, but it's about a recognition. The Angela Project is an annual conference, and we did it last year, we did it this year, and we're going to be there next year in Birmingham with the Cooperative Baptists. So I just want to give that shout out, give that love to the Angela Project and to Dr. Kevin Cosby, because the Angela Project is trying to get white Baptists to make a push for Trump and people like him to recognize the need for reparations. But we can't even get them there if we don't understand who we are and have AmericanDOS. Because the first step is who should get this? Who should speak on this? Because when Obama went to speak about reparations, a man who's not AmericanDOS, he got it all wrong. He said, why should immigrants have to pay? Don't sound like AmericanDOS. A man that inherited $400,000 in liquid wealth from his grandmother, from his white grandmother, had the audacity to tell us that we don't deserve reparations, or we shouldn't get reparations. Caller, what's your take on this whole thing? Join in where you feel like coming in.
I'm here. I'm ready.
Yeah, go ahead. Speak on it.
I'm speaking on the fact that I think I'm an ally. Okay, I got nothing but love for DOS in a way where I've lived my life almost the whole DOS experience. Mm-hmm. And I'm here to tell you, I'm in Katz in New York City 2 days ago in the afternoon, and I stepped to the girl at the where you pay, and I said, "You got any black guys cutting meat in here?" Mm. And she was like, "Oh, let me think." She says, "Yeah, there's one." I says, "Really?" And I said, "I've been coming here for 35 years, and I don't think I ever seen a black guy cutting any meat in here." Mm. And she said, "Well, I've been here for 24 years, and they think there's only one, and he might work the overnights, but I don't know if he's cutting meat." So I said, "So in the whole place here, there's no black people whatsoever?" And she pointed to the security guard. And I said, "He ain't black. He's African. He looks black. I'm talking about descendants of American slavery. Any of those work here, Katz?" And she said, "I think just the one overnight." So I think people need to start saying stuff, man. People need to start opening their mouths. When you drive by a construction site, say, "Yo, no black guys on the crew today?" Somebody got to say something.
I respect you. I've heard you speak on Yvette in my show about 4 or 5 times. I respect your support and you calling in about your pizza parlor and everything that you got going on, man. I just want to say, man, that's a piece of advice that everybody should take on. We got to start recognizing when there ain't no AmericanDOS in the company. But we can't do that until we start using AmericanDOS. The classification allows us to start identifying how we're eating the failure. We not at the Fortune 500s, but we in the jails. Let me say it again. We not at the Fortune 500s, but we in the jails. You talking about Nigerians, which is a small group, occupying the bulk of these corporate jobs? How? We supposed to just go to jail and drive Uber? I'm not having it. See, I'm bringing a whole nother kind of fire to this thing. I don't think everybody's ready. So I appreciate you calling in. The phone lines are lit. I want to give everybody a chance. Thanks so much, caller. Right. Let's take this next caller. Caller, what's your name? Where you calling from? Oh, the phone lines are lit. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Chicago.
You want to give your opinion on this?
Oh man, I'm surprised I got back through. I'm really is. My name's Carl. I'm from Chicago, and I was just thinking that like we're the yin and the yang for DOS, because we the yin for the DOS. Oh, descendants of American slave owners. So they have to prophesize on us. They have to just keep making money on us. and they put us in a position where they can't tell us the truth. They can never tell us the truth because their family made money.
Mm.
Who is they?
Who is they right now?
White folks.
Okay, just making sure because we've been talking about a bunch of different groups.
I don't know, white folks, Irish, Italians, and everybody else. This when they came over, and you look at the movies, and I'm not gonna cuss.
Let's keep it brief because I got a couple other issues I gotta get to. Come on, call it.
Okay, they say we don't do that. The niggas do that in all movies. So they put that out there. So, but we can never kind of get past that. And then plus too, you talking to people who really don't really know this. Most of the people you talk to that call in working class. And just to say another thing, if Yvette Carnell on the show, I was in Chicago and I was stumbling my words a little bit, and I was talking about the raceless, and that's what I meant. We, the yin and the yang with the descendants of the slave owners, and I was like, shit, let me just get a handshake and a hug. But
man, call it. Look, I gotta get to some more points, man. I appreciate you calling in, man. I want to say thank you for your support.
One more thing for that. I was the one that was talking about I've been watching since Iron Me was hanging up on people, and you was like, trigger finger Iron Me.
All right. Let's keep it running. All right. So look, I'm sorry, caller. I gotta get to this because this show right here, we only got so much time. And what I want to talk about now, Yvette, I'm going to throw it to you first. We see the recent issues with casting of nonDOS to tell AmericanDOS stories. Why does that matter? We see Cynthia Eviro, David Awalu. We see all these, all of Coretta Scott King and Martin Luther King was Nigerian in the Selma movie. Harriet Tubman finna be Nigerian. You see Roots. Everybody was Nigerian. I mean, do we understand the consequence of that? Especially if the New Yorker article is true for a lot of families. We don't know. We need to know. What do you think?
Well, here's the thing. First of all, think about this. I want everybody to just think about this. Think about how hard we fought all through in every sector of every sector of life. And for every job, we fought to be included in the fabric of Americana and not to be second-class citizens. That includes Hollywood. So you had DOS, American DOS actors and actresses fighting throughout for better representation, for better money, for not being stereotyped, for accurate we fought for that place in Hollywood, and now we're not even in a position to take advantage of it. So you fight and fight and fight for this spot, and somebody walks up and says, "Thank you, I appreciate it. I'm here now. You can go." And we're okay with that. And we're okay. No, that's my spot. You don't get to have the spot that we fought for. I paid the cost for that spot. So it's like you pay a cost for something. And you pay a cost for years for a retirement. And you put away all your money and then you go there and then somebody else is walking away with the bank.
Just like The Rock. He's supposed to play John Henry, former slave. I had somebody, I love when y'all do the work. Somebody went through all of his interviews on YouTube. Shout out to that brother. And it was only one interview when he was trying to sell some little black Tyler Perry movie where he said that he might have black in him. Everything else, he from the islands. What's up? What we doing here? We not gonna say nothing? See, I think that right now, what we gotta understand is people ain't paying their tithes. You know how church got tithes? AmericanDOS got tithes. And we not just talking about money right now. We talking about recognition. You got Issa Rae with Insecure. She know how to be black when she's selling the show, but when it's time to talk about race in the Cosmo, she talking about how she don't want to talk about race. Lived in Senegal and in Potomac with the white people. Then you came over here at 14 to Ladera. That's one of the wealthiest. They call that the Black Beverly Hills. When did you get to experience blackness? To be making a TV show? Now the question becomes about Africans. If you half Nigerian or you half Senegalese and you half African American, what is your obligation when your daddy or your daddy starts talking, it's presuming he's the African, bad about African Americans? What you gonna say? Oh, you gonna go quiet? Oh, that's just him. Oh, he don't know no better. Would you say the same thing if your mama that's African American started talking about how Senegal or Nigeria is a third world country? I expect you to say something both ways. Be decent at least. But I really expect you to step up because your whole life is built out of the gains, the pressures, and the push of your African American, American DOS mother or father. We haven't recognized. See, what we doing right now is like you come here and you live off of this and we didn't give you nothing. Nah, gave you everything. You could go back to that little country you came from. You can live there. Live your whole life there and hopefully it work out. But you here, and as long as you here, going to Stanford, getting a show on HBO, everything comes through your mother. Issa Rae, everything. What you think, Yvette?
Well, I want to just hit the rock thing that you said. Like, this guy has made a life of making himself raceless. Like, you don't get to be raceless and then play John Henry. Like, you don't get to, that's his life. He's made himself this indistinguishable person. So he can be in the movie with the white woman. He can be in the movie with the Latina. He can be in the movie with who? He's a raceless man. And so you award this raceless man with a character that's like this, that's about race. That's what you're doing. Now, we can have a conversation about John Henry working himself to death and all that kind of stuff and what that means. But what I'm saying to you is that we have to be very careful who we give this stuff to. We have to be very careful. And we need race people. And I'm not talking about just in terms of just black. I'm talking about American DOS in terms of what race is in this country and what it built into our lives in terms of that failure. We need people who represent that and who are that and who identify as that. We don't need you to be racist, Rock, because the Rock done made himself into a man with a tan. He doesn't identify, or he just say when he needs to, I'm a person of color.
Let me use that as a segue to talk about biracials. And when I talk about biracial, somebody like Tracy Ellis Ross, who got that white daddy. Her name is really Tracy Silberstein. Or Barack Obama, whose whole wealth and whole life comes from white people. What happens is, look, people that got 4 grandparents that come from DOS are bearing the brunt of this like I do. Because what ends up happening is if you got a white mama or daddy, especially if they're in your life, you basically become beneficiary of white privilege through them. You don't need 2. 2 is great. But just having 1, you get 400,000 like Obama got. So what's the difference between Obama and a white man if he get the same white privilege? If he get to go to the same schools, if he gets to access whiteness, what's the difference between Tracy Silberstein, Tracy Ellis Ross, and a white person? If she gets to access her Jewish dad's connection to the schmuck business in New York, go pick up Outliers if you don't know what I'm talking about. She gets to access the same Jewish line of access and privilege. Y'all are carrying this thing for people. It's the new Africans, it's the biracials, it's the Africans. What I'm telling you right now is American DOS better awaken to this consequence before you get left with the cost. Yvette, one last question. Is Black America on the verge of economic collapse due to white American oppression and immigrant tribalism?
Well, I think so. I mean, we're already on the verge. See, the thing is, we're already we've been on the verge of collapse for a long time. But see, what happened is overwhelmingly, this was a country of black people, American DOS, and white people. And so what needed to happen before we had this deluge and influx of people and immigrants is that we needed to fix us first. And so instead of fixing us, the government said, we'll just replace you. We're not going to fix you. We're not going to give you what you need and the life you need and the wealth you need and everything. We're just going to replace you. That's how we're going to deal with this. And so when you cry out and say, hey, we're not doing well, I'm going to show you somebody that looks just like you or somebody who just got here from Honduras and say, they're doing it must be something wrong with you. This is all part of this town design plan. So, yes, we're a community in collapse. And having these many immigrants who are, quote-unquote, people of color has made it to where we can't even see our own collapse. We can't even see it ourselves.
Yvette, we just had a fire show. I'm going to end with this last thing. I'm going to give my opinion, and I want you to give yours. What will Black America look like in 20 years without American DOS and transformative government? It won't look like much but jailbirds. It won't look like much but Uber drivers or whatever they got next, picking up these little bird scooters. I don't know if y'all not in California, you haven't seen them. You pick up the scooter for $5 and charge it at your house and then put it back in the street at 7 a.m. and they pay you $5 a scooter. They're 40 pounds each. It'll look like we just service providers where they ain't got to give us no undergirding so we can stop being low-level service providers. That's what's coming. They have not given us the wealth that we deserve and that we built and that we're owed here. And everything else is a cover. Everything else is a game. And when you talking to somebody, if they talking about people of color or Africans or Caribbeans and they not talking about AmericanDOS deserve everything first, they not on your on your team. That's what I see coming. Y'all better get awake because look at the wealth. White folks have all of the wealth, all of the millionaires, all of the land. How long do you think it is before they have all of the opportunity? You want to say one last thing, Yvette, and tell them about your show?
Yeah, Mondays and Wednesdays, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But that's where we are, and I think I'll say it again and again. We have to be a self-interested group. All other groups are self-interested. I don't care what they tell you to your face when they go back and discuss. You see Lovey did had that whole thing up. Naja doing it big. You know, people be talking about Lagos and all that stuff. Everybody else understands and takes pride in that. We have allowed our history of slavery to shame us, and we should not be ashamed of that. We should be proud of how we have persevered and how we have fought for our rights and how we are still here. And we should be proud, unlike a lot of other people, that we never ran away.
Please go to Tonetalks.org to subscribe and donate. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be here next Friday, 7 p.m. Thank you for tuning in.